the love of parent, fan, a friend. Come on, stick with me until the end. I know this ain't no simple deal, but I need to tell you about...
Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with jazz singer Katherine Farnham. We caught up with her in October 2020 during the COVID-19 world lockdown to talk about her 2020 CD, Love Philosophy. This internationally acclaimed Billboard-charting and Global Music Awards medalist, known as KOOL KAT, is gaining acclaim for bringing a hot new sound to jazz. Consistently compared to some of the finest singers in the world, she is a prolific and eclectic artist who fuses together musical paradigms easily, reinventing standards and bridging influences of Latin jazz, fusion, R&B, blues, and adult contemporary. Her story and energy is needed. Have a listen.
Yes. Hi, Joe. Good morning. I'm great. How are you?
Good. Thanks for taking a minute out.
No problem.
You know, we clearly are in a very surreal time on the planet between the pandemic and everything else going on. I think we're all waiting for David Lynch to kind of walk by our front window and yell cut. So and until that happens, we're kind of stuck in this. And I want to know, you have an album coming out during a pandemic. What are your thoughts on that?
The David Lynch part or the album coming out?
Well, I'm really curious about the David Lynch part. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I'm a sucker for happy endings, so I always believe my happy ending, and I will continue to staunchly believe in it. In Nashville, we stand on the front porch and we tell people to go away. We're pretty staunch about our castle doctrines. But, in terms of doing artistic work during the pandemic, I think, for my album, I was really lucky because we finished the bulk of it actually in December of last year. And, I'm a big believer in kind of, the steak in the oven, the cake in the oven. It's more or less done, but then it's like that last 5 to 10 minutes, you're really like, I guess I'm a perfectionist, I admit it. So we were mostly done before that happened, but then there were some finishing touches. And then I think there might have been 1 or 2 extra songs that kind of found their way on there, that were in the loop anyway, that we almost kind of gave up on for whatever reason. But at the, 11th hour, it was like, you know what, this kind of wants to be, having a home on this particular project. And so it was really just kind of putting the icing on the cake. Obviously there was definitely a slowdown, March, even in February, I felt, that things are kind of slowing down, and I said, geez, what's going on? This is strange. So I wasn't really surprised when the stay-at-home was announced, because I could kind of intuitively sense that something was changing in the world. But March, April, I was just at home kind of going, what's going to happen with this record, and I wasn't really that attached to it, because at that point I figured, well, who knows what's going on with music right now. But I really followed the stay-at-home religiously for about 60 days. And then after that, it was like, oh, my God, I have to get back to music making. And then suddenly I was like, you know what, this thing's basically done. We should try to do something with it. So I feel like I was blessed that it was mostly done before. And it just made me even more grateful to be able to make music and to do something positive during a time like this.
So talk to me a little bit about your beginnings, your roots, where you were born and raised, and kind of how music became your life.
Sure. I was born in Boston, and I was flown on an airplane when I was 7 days old, so I got to fly very early. My parents actually grew up I grew up near Steel City, and my parents were living in Western Pennsylvania at that time, because my dad got a full professorship to teach music. And he got tenure, so he didn't want to leave that, obviously. But they were having difficulties with the medical community there, and so my mother's OBGYN actually was in Boston. So it's kind of interesting to be able to take a plane ride when you're 7 days. Everybody was very worried about it, but apparently I slept the whole way. But I love to travel. I love to fly, maybe because of that. So I was born in Boston, but I was raised near Pittsburgh, and wasn't really a big football fan until I was an adult, more into the music and in the arts. But both of my parents were musicians, mostly classical, a little bit of jazz and theater. So I got a really good, foundation. and sometimes it was a little serious. It was kind of like, okay, I do actually want to listen to Def Leppard. but I was very blessed to get that kind of classical grounding, really early on. So music was just a part of the household, and Mom was playing the piano, Dad was playing the horn, and I was like, I started singing when I was 4 or 5 and playing, and I was like, well, I guess I have my own thing,
What was the first show that you saw live that made you think that's what I want to do?
I don't think for me that happened until later. It was probably more watching my mom play the piano, and sometimes she would accompany my dad and they would play together. But my kindergarten teacher actually pulled me aside when I was 4 or 5 and said, we'd like you to be in this Christmas play. And so I had the leading role in this Christmas pageant. And then she pulled me aside again and said, you have a good singing voice. When we do the group songs, we'd like you to do a solo in the Easter program. And I was like, a solo? I was really young, but my mother was accompanying and kind of helping out the class because she was a professional pianist. And so she coached me and rehearsed me. So I did my first solo when I was 5. And I remember walking out and the stage lights were so bright. And we had rehearsed quite a bit. So the music portion was solid. And I remember thinking like, hey, wait a minute. Nobody told me about these lights. I can't see the people. So, I remember thinking there's a lot to performing that I am just scratching the surface on, and a lot of thoughts went through my head. And I think that was the day that I knew I was going to spend years and years really perfecting that process. I think later I saw concerts that really inspired me, and then I saw a Broadway show when I was maybe 8 or 10, and I was like, okay, that's like the most incredible thing ever.
Right on. What do you like the best about being a performer?
I think I kind of like the physicality of it. I didn't, like I said, growing up in Pittsburgh, we have some amazing athletes. And I was kind of frustrated, by that whole mentality when I was young because I was more introverted. I was more shy, kind of always had my head in a book or maybe playing the piano. But really, singing at a certain level, when you start doing a lot of it, it's very athletic, so the training aspect, the mind of, like being a vocal athlete, I kind of enjoy that. And it's really a challenge. Sometimes, you're warming up or whatever, and you have good days and you have days where, the body, you feel a little bit more tired. But it's such a great release. It's a great stress reliever, and just being able to connect with audiences and, hey, I have this message, and I think it's a little bit less loaded than, obviously, politics or religion. My mother always used to say that, religion tends to divide people, but music is one of the few things that just about everybody agrees on, and it usually brings people closer together. So I feel like if you want to do something good for people, speaking of people, that's one of the singles off the record. But if you want to do something good for humanity, a lot of times an artist has a great opportunity to do that without getting embroiled in the heated issues of the day, and just, making people feel good and capturing that spirit of unity.
So if you have a dream tonight, you run into your younger self and you can give yourself advice, what would it be based on what you know now?
That's a really interesting question. I think it would have probably been to stop waiting for other people to do things for me or for my career, and just get as busy as I can and get really immersed in the process. I mean, I know a lot of artists that are very skilled at a number of different areas. They're very astute business people. Just to stop waiting for others to do things that I'm capable of doing myself.
So when COVID ends, when we do actually return, what do you hope both musician and audience realizes about this time away from live music?
I'm trying to focus on the endurance of getting through the process. It's really hard to kind of think about, like, when this is over, because then if I think about that, that's the only thing I'll think about, and I'll want it to be over tomorrow, which I'm sure we all do. Again, great question. I don't know. I know that, like I said earlier, I feel even more grateful now to be able to make music and had this record pretty much wrapped. Just maybe being grateful for the power of music and the impact that live music can have on people. In the digital age, we have easier access to music product, but especially in a genre like jazz, that doesn't necessarily mean that's all there is to it. I mean, you can go get a Miles record or whatever, but a lot of times I think, wow, man, I wish he was still here. I wish I could just go watch him, And so I like to read books about, I've read some of Herbie's autobiography, and I love hearing the stories of what it was like to actually be on the stage with him or be in that club with Miles. So I think getting those, if we look at the history of jazz and the heritage of the art form, it's such a live genre, and people, I think concert goers and jazz fans and hopefully jazz musicians appreciate that, and it's kind of like what we do. It's our religion, just being there playing and kind of, communing with the musicians on stage. And a lot of times you just don't know where you're going to end up in a piece, but you have a rough plan and you're open and you just kind of go with the flow. And it's really not a bad philosophy for life, really, having a plan but being flexible, because in this pandemic, we've got to be flexible. We just don't know how long it's going to take or play out. So hopefully just to have more gratitude for live music in general. And when we get back out there, say, wow, it is a very healing thing. And being at home, you can appreciate it. But I know for me, we did a concert at the Steinway Gallery in January, and I kind of felt like we were just getting ready to start doing, the tour preparations for this record, and then obviously it got put on hold. But I know I personally will be very grateful just to spend time with my band members and say, you know what, this is so much fun.
So my final question to you is this. Everyone has a perception of you, your family, your friends, your fans, but you're the one living your life. Who do you think you are?
Who do I think I am? I mean, I have a very goofy side that I don't know if a lot of people... I have a good sense of humor. I can be very serious, but then I can kind of flip into life is humorous, really, if you think about it. Just trying to accomplish certain things in the physical realm. Sometimes it takes a lot of persistence. You try, and it's like, okay, why didn't that work the first time? Or, like the cooking analogy, you can follow recipes, and it's like, who thought that this would be done in 20 minutes? Like, are they, are they on crack or something? And then the actual truth is that it has to bake for 45 minutes or even an hour and 15 minutes. And I think those things in life are just funny sometimes. So I appreciate the humor in life, because I think that's just a healthy way for me to be personally. I don't know if people know that. A lot of people, I think, they think I'm very serious. But I like to cut up. I like to appreciate the humor in life. And I'm a pretty easygoing person about most things. I'm pretty flexible, kind of no nonsense. I mean, music is a complicated career, but I think I'm probably a lot more easygoing and, simple than people realize. Just because you're wearing a gold hat with 7 rings on it doesn't mean that you're high maintenance, contrary to rumor.
That's great. Thank you. That's a great answer. Thank you for taking some time out today to talk about the pandemic, the new material, and your life in music. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to another Neon Jazz interview. We give you a bit of insight into the finest singers in L.A., New York, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. Thanks to Katherine for her time, music, and story. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino in the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz all the time, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Neon Jazz.